Hey guys, welcome back to The Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. 2 years ago, when I was 26, my mom died of breast cancer. And since both my grandmothers had also died from it, I went to see a specialist for screening. The results weren't good. They found some cells in one of my breasts that could become cancerous at any time. Dr. Martinez, my specialist, laid out my options. "You have 3 choices," she explained, leaning forward in her chair. "We can do regular screenings every few months to monitor the cells. Given your family history, the risk of these cells becoming cancerous is quite high, but there's also a chance they never will." "What are the other options?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "We could do a single mastectomy on the affected breast, but we'd need to monitor the other one closely. Or," she paused, "we could do a bilateral mastectomy, removing all breast tissue. This would effectively eliminate the risk." I chose the bilateral mastectomy. After watching cancer devastate my mom and grandmothers, I couldn't live with the uncertainty. The surgery went fine, but the aftermath was rough. Despite being told the scarring would be minimal, I ended up with 2 prominent, angry pink scars on either side of my chest. Each was about 1 inch long and half an inch wide, with jagged edges that made me wince every time I caught sight of them. I spiraled into depression. It got so bad that I stopped leaving my apartment. I took down all my mirrors and would get physically ill when I had to look at myself. My therapist, Sarah, suggested something unexpected during one of our sessions. "Have you considered consulting a plastic surgeon?" she asked carefully. "I don't usually recommend this, but given how this is affecting your daily life, it might be worth exploring your options." The plastic surgeon offered 3 choices: a special scar reduction cream, laser treatment, or implants. The cream did nothing, and the laser treatment was both expensive and risky, so I opted for implants. My natural size had been an F cup, so I went with a slightly smaller DD. Fast forward to now, I'm 28 and working at a marketing firm in downtown Seattle. Things were going well until Madison, everyone calls her Maddie, overheard a conversation between me and my friend Lisa about traveling. "Don't forget your implant card for security," Lisa had joked during lunch. Maddie's head whipped around so fast I thought she'd get whiplash. By the end of that day, all 45 people in our office knew about my boob job, but not the reason behind it. The next few months were brutal. Maddie turned into a one-woman rumor mill, dropping jokes whenever she could. One morning in the break room, she loudly announced, "Anyone want coffee? It's real, unlike some things around here." Another time, while passing my desk, she muttered, "More plastic than a Barbie doll." My colleague Rachel later told me Maddie had referred to me as a walking silicone factory during a team meeting I'd missed. "You should have heard her going on about taxpayer money," Rachel said, rolling her eyes. "She's convinced you got them free on the NHS or something, even though we're not even in England." I tried confronting Maddie multiple times. Once in the elevator, "Could you please stop making comments about my body? It's inappropriate." She just smirked. "Can't take a joke?" Maybe they pumped out your sense of humor along with everything else. The worst part was that these confrontations always happened in places without witnesses or cameras. The bathroom, the stairwell, the parking garage. She was smart about it. The breaking point came during a lunch meeting. I was sitting with my team discussing a client's superficial rebranding request. "Yeah, it's pretty shallow," I said, reviewing the brief. Maddie, who wasn't even part of our team, leaned across the table. "Oh, honey," she sneered, pointing at my chest. "You'd know all about shallow, wouldn't you?" The break room went silent. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. "You want to know why I have these, Maddie?" I said, my voice shaking. 2 years ago, doctors found precancerous cells in my breasts. I had to choose between waiting for cancer to develop or getting a double mastectomy. The surgery left me with massive scars that made me so depressed I couldn't look in mirrors anymore. These implants, they're covering scars that reminded me every day that I might end up like my mom and grandmothers, dead from breast cancer. So maybe next time you want to judge someone's medical choices, you should ask why they made them first. I grabbed my lunch and walked out, leaving behind a stunned silence. Throughout the afternoon, coworkers kept stopping by my desk. Some, like Rachel, offered support. That was so brave. Maddie needed to hear that. Others weren't as kind. "You didn't have to be such a drama queen," said Tom from accounting. "Maddie was just joking around." "Funny," I replied. I didn't realize medical trauma was such great comedy material. Then came the email from HR, requesting a meeting about a hostile work environment. The signature at the bottom belonged to Karen, Maddie's lunch buddy from HR. My stomach dropped, but then I remembered something about our company policies. I spent that evening preparing my defense. First, I dug out my employment contract and found exactly what I remembered, a clause about requesting an unbiased reviewer for HR complaints. I highlighted it carefully, making 2 copies. Then I sent messages to everyone who'd shown support. Hey, HR meeting tomorrow. Would you be willing to document what you've heard Maddie say about me? Just needs to be signed and dated. My phone started buzzing with responses. While not everyone was brave enough to stand up to Maddie's HR connections, I got more support than expected. "Count me in," Rachel texted. "I've got a whole list of stuff she's said about you and others." I arrived early the next morning collecting signed statements from my colleagues. The letters were simple but powerful. I, Rachel Chen, witnessed Madison Roberts make the following comments about Sarah Mitchell on multiple occasions. One letter began, followed by dated incidents and direct quotes. Some revelations surprised even me. Apparently, Maddie had a history of making inappropriate comments about others, too. She'd mocked James's accent, made racist comments about Maria's hair, and constantly criticized Amy's weight. At 10 a.m. sharp, I walked into HR with my folder of evidence. Karen was waiting, perfectly coiffed and wearing her usual condescending smile. "Right this way," she said, gesturing toward her office. "Actually," I said, addressing Tom, the other HR representative present, "I'd prefer to meet with you." Karen's smile faltered. "I'm handling this case." "According to Section 7.3 of my contract," I said, pulling out the highlighted page, "I have the right to request an unbiased reviewer. Given your close personal relationship with Maddie, I don't believe you can be impartial." "I can absolutely be impartial," Karen snapped. "The fact that you're getting defensive proves you can't," I replied calmly. The department head, Mr. Phillips, was called in. After reviewing the situation, he assigned Tom and himself to handle the case. The meeting lasted 3 hours. I presented my evidence methodically. The documented incidents, the witness statements, and medical records confirming my mastectomy and reconstruction. I also showed texts and emails where I'd asked Maddie to stop her harassment. "This isn't just about me," I explained. "These statements show a pattern of discriminatory behavior targeting multiple employees." Mr. Phillips looked grim as he reviewed the documentation. "This is extremely serious," he said. "We'll need to conduct a full investigation." The next 2 weeks were tense. Maddie strutted around like nothing had changed, but Karen avoided eye contact in the hallways. HR interviewed dozens of employees, and more people came forward with their own stories about Maddie's behavior. Finally, Mr. Phillips called another meeting. This time, Maddie was there too, looking smugly confident until he started speaking. "After thorough investigation, we've found substantial evidence of workplace harassment and discrimination," he began. "Madison, your employment with this company is terminated, effective immediately." Maddie's face went white. But it was just jokes. Everyone jokes around here." "Mocking someone's medical condition isn't joking," Mr. Phillips replied firmly. "It's discrimination. Please collect your belongings. Security will escort you out." As Maddie was led away, she shot me a venomous look. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "No," I said quietly, "I won't." Karen resigned the following week, citing personal reasons. The office atmosphere improved dramatically after that. People started sharing their own stories more openly, supporting each other through various challenges. Rachel organized a small celebration lunch for me. "To standing up to bullies," she toasted, raising her glass. "To learning the whole story before judging," I added. Last week, I got promoted to team lead. During the announcement, Mr. Phillips specifically mentioned my integrity and leadership in difficult situations. The scars are still there, hidden beneath my implants, but now they remind me not just of survival, but of standing up for myself and others. Sometimes the worst experiences teach us the most important lessons, about courage, about justice, and about the power of speaking truth. The next one is an entitled people's story. I never thought I'd be sharing this story, but after everything that's happened, I feel like I need to warn others about how crazy homeowners associations can get, even when you think you're safe from them. 5 years ago, I bought 15 acres of pristine mountain land in Colorado. It was my dream. Totally remote, beautiful views, and most importantly, no homeowners association. I did my due diligence, had the title searched, got a survey done, everything checked out perfectly clean. The land had been owned by the same family for generations before they decided to sell parcels of their ranch. I'm a carpenter by trade, and I'd always dreamed of building my own cabin from the ground up. I spent 2 years planning, saving, and getting all the proper permits from the county. I made sure everything was done legally and by the book. The building inspector even commented that my plans were some of the most thorough he'd seen from an owner-builder. Construction started 3 years ago. I took a leave of absence from my regular job and lived in a small camper on the property while building. It was just me, my tools, and the mountains. I did everything myself except for the electrical and plumbing, which I hired licensed contractors for as required by code. The cabin turned out beautifully. 1,500 square feet, 2 bedrooms, massive windows overlooking the valley, wraparound deck, the works. All built to code, all properly inspected and approved. I was so proud of what I'd accomplished. Finally moved in last summer and thought I was living my dream. Then last month, I got a certified letter from something called Mountain Vista Estates Homeowners Association. I'd never heard of them before. The letter claimed my property was actually part of their homeowners association, demanded $25,000 in back dues and fines, and ordered me to immediately remedy multiple violations, including unauthorized construction. I thought it was a joke at first. There hadn't been a homeowners association when I bought the land. I called the number on the letter and spoke to Karen, yes, really her name, who was apparently their board president. "Your property is within our boundaries," she said in the most condescending tone imaginable. "We've expanded our coverage area. You'll need to pay all back dues and submit your building plans for approval. That cabin will likely need significant modifications to meet our architectural guidelines." Expanded your coverage area? You can't just claim random properties and force them into an homeowners association, I said. "We absolutely can. Our board voted on it 6 months ago. You'll be receiving a lien notice if you don't comply within 30 days. I was furious. I bought this land specifically because it wasn't in an homeowners association. You can't retroactively force me to join. "We'll see about that," she replied, and hung up. I immediately called my real estate attorney, James, who'd helped with my original purchase. He was as baffled as I was. "This is completely illegal," he said after reviewing everything. "They can't just annex property without owner consent. Something's fishy here." We did some digging and found out this Mountain Vista Estates was a small development about 2 miles from my property. They had around 30 homes on 100 acres. Apparently, they'd been trying to expand for years, but kept getting shut down by the county. Their new strategy was apparently just claiming they owned everything and hoping people would be intimidated into paying up. James found at least 3 other property owners who'd received similar letters. True to their word, they filed a lien against my property, but that's where they made their big mistake. Now we could take them to court. James filed for an emergency hearing to remove the lien and get a restraining order against the homeowners association. The judge was not happy when she saw our evidence. In court, Karen tried claiming they had historical rights to the entire mountain and that their expansion vote made it official. She even brought a hand-drawn map showing their new boundaries, which conveniently included all the most valuable properties in the area. The judge cut her off. "Ma'am, that's not how property law works, at all. You can't vote to steal other people's land." "We're not stealing anything," Karen protested. "We're providing valuable services. These remote properties need proper oversight." That's when James presented the real bombshell. He'd discovered that Karen and several board members had been buying up tax liens on properties, then using homeowners association dues claims to try forcing owners to sell cheap. They'd already flipped several properties this way. "Your Honor," James said, "this appears to be a deliberate scheme to defraud property owners through false homeowners association claims. We'd like to amend our complaint to include civil RICO charges." The judge's face turned stormy. She immediately invalidated the lien and issued a permanent injunction barring the homeowners association from making any claims on my property. But it didn't end there. The judge ordered a full investigation of the homeowners association's activities and referred the case to the district attorney for possible criminal charges. "This court takes a very dim view of attempting to steal property through fraudulent means," she said. "I suggest you retain criminal defense counsel." Karen turned white as a sheet. As we left the courthouse, I heard her frantically calling someone about damage control. But the story isn't over yet. The investigation is still ongoing, and we've found more victims. James is now putting together a class action lawsuit against the Homeowners Association and its board members personally. I'll update when we have more to share, but I wanted to warn everyone, just because you bought property free and clear doesn't mean some homeowners association won't try to claim it. Document everything, and don't let them intimidate you. Update, 6 months later. The last 6 months have been a wild ride, but I can finally share how everything turned out. Spoiler alert, justice was served and served hard. Remember how the judge ordered an investigation? Well, it turns out we'd only scratched the surface of Karen and her homeowners association board's schemes. The district attorney's office found evidence that they'd been running this scam for nearly 3 years. Their playbook was pretty clever. I'll give them that. They'd identify valuable properties near their homeowners association, particularly ones owned by elderly people or out-of-state owners. Then they'd send official-looking letters claiming homeowners association jurisdiction, demanding huge back payments. If owners paid, great, free money. If they didn't, they'd file liens and try to force foreclosure sales, which board members would then buy through shell companies. My lawyer, James, connected with 27 other property owners who'd received similar letters. Some had actually paid thousands in fake dues. A few elderly owners had been scared into selling their properties for way below market value. The class action lawsuit we filed revealed that Karen and the board had pocketed over $400,000 through their scheme. But their luck ran out when they tried it with me, a stubborn carpenter who keeps every receipt and document since high school. The criminal investigation led to charges against Karen and 4 other board members for fraud, extortion, and racketeering. The DA's evidence was overwhelming. They had everything from fake documents to recorded phone calls where board members literally discussed how to squeeze property owners. Karen tried to plea bargain, offering to testify against the others, but they had her dead to rights on the documentation. She'd signed everything as board president. The judge wasn't having any of it. Last week, Karen was sentenced to 4 years in state prison. 2 other board members got 3 years each, and the remaining 2 got 18 months plus massive fines. They're also banned for life from serving on any homeowners association board. The civil case was even more satisfying. The class action settlement required them to repay every dime they'd collected, plus triple damages. My share wasn't huge since I'd never paid them anything, but the elderly folks who'd been scammed got their properties back plus substantial compensation. The legitimate homeowners in Mountain Vista Estates were horrified when they learned what their board had been doing. They voted to dissolve the homeowners association completely rather than try to rebuild after the scandal. Now they just have a voluntary neighborhood association that handles snow plowing and maintains their community park. The best part? The judge's final order included a permanent deed restriction on my property stating that it can never be incorporated into any homeowners association. James says it's the first time he's seen anything like it, but the judge wanted to make sure no one could try this again. I did have one final encounter with Karen before she went to prison. She was at the gas station in town, and I was filling up my truck. She walked over and I thought she was going to cause a scene. Instead, she just looked defeated. "I guess you won," she said. "It wasn't about winning," I told her. "It was about doing what's right. You tried to steal something I built with my own hands." She just shook her head and walked away. Last I heard, her house in the Estates is up for sale. Karma's funny that way. The cabin's doing great, by the way. I added a workshop out back last summer, with proper permits, of course. The building inspector who'd approved my original plans stopped by to check it out and ended up staying for dinner. We had a good laugh about the whole homeowners association fiasco. These days, when I sit on my deck watching the sunset, I appreciate it even more knowing how close I came to losing it. The mountains don't care about homeowners association rules or property schemes. They've been here long before us and will be here long after. I'm just grateful I get to be their neighbor on my own terms. For anyone dealing with homeowners association issues, especially suspicious ones, document everything, know your rights, and don't be afraid to fight back. These bullies count on people giving in out of fear or exhaustion. Don't let them win. And if you're thinking of buying property, triple check that it's really homeowners association free if that's what you want. Get everything in writing. Keep every document. You never know when you might need it. As for me, I'm looking forward to many peaceful years in my cabin. Maybe I'll write a book about this whole experience someday. For now, though, I'm content knowing that justice was served and my mountain home is safe from homeowners association drama forever. The only organization I answer to now is Mother Nature, and she's a much more reasonable landlord than Karen ever was. The next one is a Malicious compliances story. This story isn't about me, but about a very smart, very sassy union rep I used to work with. When I was in my late 20s, I worked at a large theme park as a supervisor for one of the roller coasters in the park. The safety policies were drilled into our head every week so that if a situation ever came up, hopefully our instinct would be to follow our training for the safest outcome of all parties, customers, and employees. Things like fire drills, ride evacuations, and medical situations were stuff we were quizzed on multiple times a week and could land us in hot water if we answered incorrectly. This is stuff everyone at every level should know. One day, I was working with one of my fellow supervisors we can call Jeff. Jeff was a supervisor like me, except with about 10 more years of experience, a chip on his shoulder for management, and the authority of a union position. He was loved by his employees and co-workers, but did not get along with anyone further up the food chain, and he was not someone to be trifled with. Jeff and I were working together when the fire alarm went off at the ride. The process was, stop loading, kick all of the customers out of the building, while simultaneously run the ride so that all the customers on the ride could get off the ride. Once everyone is off the ride itself, we would stop it and everyone would leave. However, this day we had a younger manager who was trying to make a name for themselves show up during the process and make the call to stop loading and kick everyone out, but not to stop the ride for the employees to leave. This effectively kept everyone, both employees and customers in the building, for about 20 minutes longer than needed. Jeff was fuming, but did as he was told. Once the last customer left the building, the manager smugly turned to Jeff and announced, "Now you can follow our protocol." Jeff raised his eyebrows and chipped back, "Oh, now I can. All right." He reached over and waited for a few beats before slamming the emergency stop. This ride had 3 lifts, which could easily be reset, and 3 safety brakes, which required our maintenance staff to physically winch the vehicles out of it and to a lift. This badass had waited just long enough for each vehicle to crest its respective lift and catch in a safety brake. He turned to our manager and said, "Have fun with that. I'm going home. Oh, and I'm filing a grievance with the union for you putting employee lives in danger." The ride was down for about 6 hours after that. When maintenance saw the state of the ride, with a vehicle in every brake zone, they rightfully raised hell. Jeff never got in trouble, but did leave the area not long after that. The manager also never got in trouble, and I believe they are doing really well for themselves now. But until the day I left that job, I told the story of Jeff's wide-eyed expression as he asked, "Oh, now I can?" before turning what should have been an hour downtime into a 6-hour monstrosity. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.